Damascus stresses that news about contacting the Office of Political and Media Presidential Advisor regarding the suicide of British doctor as being groundless. Units of the Syrian Arab Army kill and wound dozens of terrorists, including different nationalities, in Idlib, Aleppo and Damascus. Five people were wounded when terrorists detonated an explosive device inside a passenger vehicle in the capital, Cairo. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Mirado Krikorian from the News Center in Damascus. The Office of the Political and Media Advisor at the Presidency, Dr. Shaaban, has dismissed as baseless reports by the Lebanese Al Jadid TV and Al Jumhuriya Daily that the office has been contacted by anyone on the suicide incident of British doctor Abbas Khan Shah. The Foreign and Expatriates Ministry had summoned on the 18th of this month the representative of the Czech Embassy in Damascus in his capacity as the person in charge of the British Interest Section in Syria and handed him a medical report on the suicide case of British national Abbas Khan Shah, who had illegally entered Syrian territories and carried out banned activities. The report pointed out that Khan Shah died of suffocation caused by hanging and that he had hanged himself. That is, the incident was done by the person himself with the intention of suicide, and that no traces of violence, strain or resistance has appeared, whether by X-ray or otherwise, on the body. The Deputy Foreign and Expatriates Minister, Dr. Faisal Maqdad, stressed during his reception of the Czech Embassy's official in Damascus that Syria was about to hand over this citizen to his mother and to the Member of Parliament at the British House of Commons, Mr. George Galloway, who interfered in the order to grant Khan Shah a pardon. Foreign and Expatriates Minister Walid al-Moallem today discussed with the Indian Acting Assistant Foreign Minister Mr. Sandeep Kumar ways of enhancing bilateral relations and the efforts exerted for the convention of the International Conference on Syria in Geneva. Minister Moallem referred to the war waged against the Syrian state and people by the terrorist groups whose members belong to more than 80 countries. Therefore, he stressed the Geneva Conference should focus as a priority on combating terrorism and compelling the states that offer support to the terrorists to stop funding and arming them. Mr. Moallem affirmed that ending terrorism in Syria is the basis of a successful political solution. On his part, Kumar said his country was following up the situation in Syria and was working with a number of concerned states to restore security and stability to it. He also expressed India's appreciation for the Syrian leadership's support for India's desire to take part in the conference. In the town of Jeroud in Damascus countryside, Sheikh Firas Krezan, the Imam of Al-Bashir Mosque, was assassinated by an armed terrorist group in front of the mosque. Meanwhile, units of the Syrian Arab Army killed a number of terrorists in Jisrin town, including one Jordanian, one Tunisian and another of Libyan nationality. The Syrian Arab Army also targeted an armed terrorist group near Al-Fatah Mosque in Al-Mleha, killing a number of terrorists, including one from Afghanistan and another from Tunisia. In Aleppo, army units eliminated a number of terrorists and injured others in the villages and towns of Kouairis, Arbid, Jdeide, Al Zarzour, Kafin, Azaz, Mayer, Hreitan and Oram in Aleppo countryside. Other units destroyed terrorist cars along with the weapons and ammunition inside them near Aleppo Central Prison, the industrial city, Fafin, Der Hafer, Hawzan, Al-Bab and on the Castello Road. Large numbers of terrorists were eliminated in a series of army operations targeting the hideouts and gatherings in Khan al-Asal, Kafarnaha, Ma'arrat al-Artik and Al-Mansoura. In Idlib countryside, units of the Syrian Arab Army targeted terrorist groups in Taftanaz, Ma'arrat al-Nu'man, Ma'arrat Masrin, Sarmin and Majrin, killing and wounding dozens of them as their weapons and vehicles were also destroyed. In Iraq, several soldiers were wounded when a blast caused by an explosive device targeted Iraqi army personnel in Heat, west of Ramadi. Following the explosion, clashes erupted between the army and armed men. The area was sealed off by the security forces, who launched a campaign of inspection in the region. Following the Iraqi government's decision to close its borders with Jordan, the Iraqi armed forces continued their clampdown on Al-Qaeda organization's strongholds in Al-Anbar desert. Iraqi warplanes destroyed caves and rocky cavities in Huran and Al-Abyad valleys and Sawab wells near the Syrian borders, where the terrorists had moved to flee the strikes of the Iraqi army. Al Jazeera and Al-Badiya troops also repelled another attack launched by Jabhat al-Nusra from Syrian territories, killing 11 Nusra attackers and wounding others. Another unit destroyed 12 vehicles and killed its occupants and blew up a big warehouse of weapons and explosives west of Al-Anbar. In Al-Abbasi desert and Al-Riyadh southwest of Kirkuk Governorate, the 12th Brigade, together with Kirkuk police, destroyed the strongholds of the so-called the Islamic State of Iraq and the Sham and a Sunnah partisans army, and dismantled 3 cells who had been responsible for detonating houses in Al-Hawajeh, capturing 38 terrorists, including 4 leaders of the so-called Islamic State of Iraq and the Sham. In Salah ad-Din Governorate, the Iraqi police destroyed the headquarters of the terrorist Al-Qaeda organization, killing all the terrorists therein. In Egypt, 5 people were wounded when terrorists detonated an explosive device in a passenger vehicle in front of Al-Azhar University in the capital, Cairo. The wounded victims were transported to the hospital for treatment. Meanwhile, security experts found and dismantled a locally manufactured explosive device planted in the garden adjacent to the street next to a school complex. The explosion followed a statement by the Egyptian government, which considered the Muslim Brotherhood to be a terrorist organization. Turkish Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan suffered the worst blow in his political life when 3 of his ministers quit the cabinet, including old friend, and called for his resignation, the latest fallout from a corruption investigation that threatens to undermine party. Erdogan fired a 4th minister late last night and announced a broad new cabinet lineup. In response, the Turkish lira hit record lows against the US dollar and the euro today. The unusual upheaval underscores mounting challenges facing Erdogan ahead of a lengthy election cycle that starts in March, as thousands of Turks took to the streets demanding his immediate resignation. Saidnaya is a famous Syrian city which is an ancient religious site for holy figures and saints, with Aramaic language is still spoken today by local inhabitants.
The city of Saidnaya is one of the main villages in Al-Qalamun Mountains, located on a hill southwest of a Cherubi mountain, which is 1,350 meters above sea level. The village is surrounded with rocket hills covered with different types of trees and plants. Saidnaya is 12 kilometers far from Damascus, stretching along 5,100 hectares of fertile soil to the left of the highway near Mnin Valley. Because of its historical and touristic importance, travelers and men of religion wrote about it extensively as being a site of the Syriac civilization, with the ancient Aramaic language is still spoken today by the local inhabitants of the area. The town of Sednaya houses a number of famous churches, chapels, monasteries and holy sites like Mar Gerges Monastery, Martuma and Ash-Sherubim, among many others, which have become a favorite touristic attraction over hundreds of years. And the Lady of Sednaya's monastery is the icon of Holy Virgin Mary, which is one of the 4 original copies drawn by Saint Tuma.
And now over to latest business and market news, but after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The Ministry of Oil signed the Amrit contract with Russian company Soyuz Naftogaz Eastmed for offshore oil drilling, development and production in Block Number 2 of Syria's territorial waters. The contract covers oil exploration in the area between Tartus city and Banyas city at a depth of 70 kilometers, covering an overall area of 2,190 square kilometers. The contract stipulates for beginning with surveys in the area and preparing studies to pinpoint potential drilling sites, with this stage costing over $15 million. The second stage will involve drilling at least 1 test well, and it will cost over $75 million, and if the operations are successful, the company will carry out further drilling, development and production operations. The contract also includes benefits such as training staff at the Syrian General Establishment of Petroleum to create a qualified Syrian workforce. The Investment Commission branch in As-Suwayda Governorate has granted 7 licenses for several investment projects, with the total cost exceeded 1 billion Syrian pounds. The projects include milk production project and cleaning materials production one, as well as a project for cattle breeding and production of milk and dairy products, in addition to feed and organic fertilizer projects, furthermore establishing farms to generate electrical power, and a project for establishing 25 gas stations. The Turkish currency fell to its lowest level after failure. The cabinet rushed files that made by Erdogan to calm down the investors' concerns about the corruption scandal. As a result of this crisis, the governmental stocks were down and Turkish market stock index fell 3%. The reason of the decline of the Turkish currency is due to the police investigations after arresting last week dozens of businessmen and accused people in corruption who had connections with the government of Erdogan. U.S. crude oil rose for a second day on speculation that the crude stockpiles shrank in the U.S., the world's biggest oil consumer. Futures climbed 0.4%, while Brent for February settlement climbed 0.2% to reach $112 a barrel. U.S. stocks are on track to become the top investment in 2013, with the Standard & Poor's 500 index on course to mark its best year since 1997. Japanese stocks are close second. Gold was little changed in 10-year end trade, but looked set to post its biggest annual loss in more than 3 decades, as rallying equities and optimism about a global economic recovery dented its safe haven appeal. Spot gold hold above $1,200 an ounce. Finally, the yen weakened to a 5-year low versus the US dollar amid speculation that the Bank of Japan will continue unprecedented stimulus while the Federal Reserve pairs quantitative easing as the US economy recovers. With this, we end our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our site in English, syriaonline.sy. Till next Saturday, enjoy your weekend.